Hello and welcome to Amp Up Your Teaching 20 Ways to Make Learning More Dynamic. We're going to be exploring different ways that we can provide engagement to our students. And up here is a bit.ly link that will take you to the slides. So if you are wanting to access all of the material in the slides, that bit.ly is right there. I'm also going to throw the link in the YouTube chat as well. So go ahead and say hi in the YouTube chat and let me know what grade level you teach or what you do in education. So there's the link for the slides if you are wanting access to view the material and all the resources throughout the session. All right, so my name is Stephanie Howe, and I'm an instructional technology coach in Pickerington Local School District. I'm also a podcaster, YouTuber, and I'm also an oversharer. So in this session, we're going to go through a lot of different ideas, but your goal is to take one idea back to your classroom or to your school or whatever you do in education. So again, there's going to be a lot of resources because I am an oversharer, but your goal is to have one resource that you can take back with you. I also wrote a book about executive functioning, and my life-changing moment was when I went to the Google Innovator Academy in Sydney, Australia. And my why is in school, I was a struggling student. So making it engaging is really important to me because my experience, it was not engaging. It was very much so direct instruction from my teachers. If you need access to any of the resources in the presentation, you probably will need to join the Gold EDU group. So anytime you might get an error message that says you do not have access, you're going to need to join the group. So to join the group, you're going to click this link right here. And once you click this link, you're going to click join. Okay, so mine doesn't say join. And then you're able to collaborate with a bunch of educators in this group. If the emails become too overwhelming, you can go into the group settings and you are able to set up your notifications to however you want to be notified. So again, if you get that error message that you need access, it's because you're not a part of the Google group and you just need to join, and then you'll have access to everything in this slides presentation. So what does the research say? Okay, so what does the research say? Why do we need to amp up our teaching? Why do we need to maybe think about different ways that we are going to make our learning dynamic? And so when we're thinking about this, the first reason is active learning. Research has shown that when students are engaged and active, they're not only going to retain more information, but they're going to be able to build skills such as like problem solving and working with a group. And those aren't just great for right now, those are also great for later on. So that's the first reason. Another thing is when we can personalize our learning, students are going to be more engaged because it's going to be catered to their interests, their background, and their experiences. Number 3 is collaboration. So when we're able to create these engagement activities, our students will be able to collaborate with others. Collaboration is a high impact strategy that you can use in your classroom if done well. And I like to provide a lot of different protocols in order to have students collaborating so they're on topic and focused in their learning. And then feedback. When we can provide our students with regular and timely feedback, they are going to be more engaged with the content because they're going to feel a sense of accomplishment and confidence. And then the number 5 is support. When we can provide our students with support, they will most likely try new things and they're going to feel valued and respected. So this is what the research tells us. And within our presentation today, there's going to be a lot of different ways that we're going to amp up our teaching to provide that support to our students. So this first one right here, this is called this Sesame Street quiz. And in the chat, I want you to just share. I want you to think about what are some of your favorite engagement activities and share them in the chat. So again, share them in the YouTube chat, your favorite engagement strategies for your classroom. All right, so when it comes to the Sesame Street quiz, what happens is students will spin a wheel. And if you click on the image here, a slide presentation will pop up. I've tried to create videos because, again, I'm an oversharer. So if you need to go back and rewatch any of the videos to learn the strategy or learn how to do that, you have that available for you as well. So maybe you're like, I don't want to use this strategy yet, but maybe in December or when I come back in January, I'm ready to learn it. So this first one, the Sesame Street quiz, students will roll or spin this wheel. Once they spin the wheel, and I use Flippity to create this wheel, for example, there's a lot of different sites you could use. The students will spin this wheel and they will then have to make connections. So I'm going to go ahead and spin this wheel. And what they have to do now is Peter escaped cabin. Okay, so this is from Touching Spirit Bear, a book that our students read. And now what they have to do with those three words is they need to make connections and they might need to decide which word doesn't belong. And they have to provide justification as to why. So this isn't just that recall level of learning. Students are really starting to justify their reasoning. Why does this not apply or why does this not follow with the three words that were picked, or what are the connections? You can do this as a think, pair, share, where students will think first, then they will pair up, and then they will share with the entire group. So once students have that going, you're able to maybe have a debate about why this group picked Peter escaped and they made those connections. But then the other group maybe made a different connection and they can kind of talk about that, and students are able to hear from each other. You'll notice that there are time limits here, so that really helps students focus in on the time that they need to do for these different activities. And again, you can put whatever contents you want, and you can use Flippity, you could do name of wheel, so many different websites to create that wheel that you can create for your students to practice this new content. Another one is Tabletop Twitter. So when it comes to Tabletop Twitter, again, if you click on the image, it's going to open up the link to the resource. So right here is Tabletop Twitter. And what happens is students will write a tweet about what they've learned today. And so when they're writing a tweet, it's just a summary of what they have learned. And again, you're going to have your students use about 140 characters, just like Twitter, and they're going to describe what they've learned for the day. After they write their summary, they're then going to move to the Sketch It. When they're at the Sketch It, they're going to draw or add an image or capture some type of big idea in a graphic. And the students will then, again, draw that diagram, draw that sketch, or they might find it online if this is a digital assignment. And they're going to go ahead and sketch their idea. After they sketch their ideas, they are then going to summarize their entire idea using a hashtag. So students will then now come and think of one word that they're able to create a hashtag for when they're going into their learning. And then the final stage is kind of that share. They're going to find a classmate and they're going to collaborate. The classmate's going to read their what's happening, their sketch it, and their hashtag. Once the partner reads these three areas, they're going to share and retweet it. So when they retweet it, they're going to take what their friend said and they're going to add one more idea that is going off of that student's summary about what they were learning today. Then they can share it with the class. And again, it's just kind of a great way to get your students to reflect and think about what they've learned. And they're doing kind of that think first, where they're by themselves, and then they're finding that partner to share and plus one it. And then the waiting room. So having feedback is really important when we're trying to engage our students. And so one way that we're able to do this is using the waiting room. And when it comes to the waiting room, you will want to conference with your students probably one-on-one. So again, if you click on this image, it's going to open up the resource. We can see here that we have a teacher that maybe created some announcements. She has over here her must-dos, her can-do list, and then she has these little B numbers. So what these B numbers are is students will take numbers. So you could either use this template and kind of cut them out and then laminate them for students to pick up, or you could use this template where you cut out the honeycombs. So again, you can kind of decide how you want to set this up. Once students need help, they will come and grab one of these numbers. After they grab a number, what the students will do is they're going to wait for their turn. So the teacher will be conferencing with students, and after she meets with students one, she'll just change this to number two. Number two student will come up, they will get that conference, and then she's ready to meet with number three. Okay, and then the teacher can keep changing this number as she meets with students. But as students are waiting for that conference, they're able to work on this must do and can do list while that teacher is busy meeting with other students. So it's a great procedure, again, to kind of keep students working, but then conferencing with them really quick to get just some ideas. You could, again, use this template, or you could cut these out. And then again, the students come up, and you might even put magnets on the board. And then the students come, grab your magnet, and go back to your seat. Another idea is called roll it. So when it comes to roll it, students are going to read it, roll it, and respond to it. So when they read an article, or maybe it's watch it, you might change some of these words to whatever your content area is. So maybe again, instead of read it, it might be a watch it. So for this activity, students are going to read an article. After they read an article, they're going to roll a six-sided dice. Once they roll, they're going to go to that number that they rolled. So for example, I rolled a 3. They're going to look at, compare and contrast the characters' personalities in the story. Once they read their task, they are then going to respond to it over in this box. So again, you could have this digital, you could have it on paper. It's kind of up to you how you want to organize it. And again, you can change the read it to a watch it, and then the students are able to follow along that way. Over here, again, we can see I can come in this table and I can quickly change to a math question. So maybe there's different math problems I wanted my students to solve, and they are watching a example video, or maybe they're reviewing it and they're looking over the step-by-step directions on how to solve fractions. After that, then they're going to roll it to solve an example, and then they're going to respond to it. Maybe it's social studies. They might read a primary source, and then there might be questions about it where they roll it and then they respond to it. After they do these three things, you can have them find a partner that has a different number, and then they could kind of jigsaw it and talk about what their answer was when they rolled it. So you could kind of create groups of 6, and then every single student would have to find a different number, or you could have them just group up with someone different, or you could have them group up with someone who had the same number, and then they could kind of +1 and make it better for each other. Number 5 is mystery predictions. So when it comes to mystery predictions, students are with a group. So they're in a group, and usually their group is about 3 to 4 students. After they're in their group, they're going to read a quote in order. So what you're going to do is you're going to search your content for either people in history, quotes that they said, or maybe it's examples in math, or maybe it is quotes from a book. And you're going to put that quote here. And if there's a character, you're going to put their name in the role. Okay, so each of these little cards here are going to have their quote, character, character role, and clue 3. If you're using this outside of a novel, you might change character role to something else, okay? Or you might change character name as well. After you get your quotes ready, and sometimes I will just go to ChatGPT. I will ask ChatGPT for 6 quotes. So I asked it for 6 quotes about touching Spirit Bear, and here they come, and I could copy and paste those over to the template. Once we have our template ready to go, students will then discuss with their group what they think that story or that content that they're about to learn is going to be about. So they will slowly read each of these little cards, and as they're reading these cards, they're going to make a prediction. What do we think the story is going to be about after card 1? Then they get additional textual evidence, and now they're making a stronger prediction because they have 2 sources to make a prediction on. Then they're going to go to clue number 3, and they're going to make a prediction here. Students continue the process until they're at their final clue, where they should have all 6 clues of evidence, and they should be able to make a pretty strong prediction about what they are learning. You could also do this with vocab words, where students maybe have the definition, an example, and then they have to guess what the vocab word is. So a lot of different ways that you could kind of do this if you wanted to create that mystery prediction. This template might just need to be tweaked a little bit if you're trying to create those predictions for your students. The unfair game. So another way that we can engage our students is with games. And games are a great way to engage our students because it allows us to reach a lot of different personalities. And so with the unfair game, what happens is there's a slide deck. And on this slide, students will be answering questions. So to get your questions, it's usually off of a worksheet. It could be a task card. Anywhere you can find questions or generate questions is where you're going to want to get those from. Once you have your questions, you're going to then have your students pick a number if they got that question correct. Students then decide if they want to keep it or give it away. The team at the end with the most points is our winner. So here is an example, and feel free in the chat to share which number you want. So for example, I would ask the students, what's 2 plus 2? They would respond with hopefully 4. And those students that said 4, I would then go with group 1 to start, or group 2, however you want to decide. And I would say, okay, group 1, what number do you want to pick off the board? Group 1 says 12. I say, do you want to keep 12 or do you want to give it away? If they give it away, they give it to another team in the room, because sometimes there's negative points and sometimes there's positive points behind these little doors. And so the team that in number 1 says 12, they're going to keep it. So they're going to keep whatever points are behind that door. So I click it. It's plus 20. So that team gets 20 points. I go back home. I click this little home button. And then I ask another question. So then I'm on to question number 2, 3 plus 3. Hopefully our students answer 6. And then I just ask them, okay, which number do you want to pick? This second team says 25. And I say, do you want to keep it or give it away? They're going to keep it. So I'm going to go ahead and do it, plus 50 points. So now our team number 2 is in the lead with 50 points. And then I just keep score up on the whiteboard. You could have it on a piece of paper. You could have your students keep score. And then again, at the end of the game, I sometimes set a timer. We sometimes get through every single little circle, box, or door to open. But usually I set a timer, and then the students that have the most points by the end of the timer is our winner, or it's by the end of the questions. On the whiteboard, I just go up and I cross it off to show that that one has been opened. So once it's open, it can't be reopened. It's just opened. Another thing is you could use like Post-it notes to cover it up too if you don't have this projecting on a whiteboard. So one thing that you might want to do is once you start using this, here's all of the numbers. And if you click on the number, you'll notice that it is linked. So you can see here, this goes to slide 5. So if you're going to play this multiple times, you just might want to make a copy and change the point values here. So again, you can see where there's negative points, there's positive points. There's also swap points. Sometimes I'll do 10 push-ups or something just fun to get the students up and moving as well. So feel free, again, to make a copy. And then if you do play more than once, you will want to change your points because students will start to memorize what numbers are behind those doors. All right, number 7 is a tracker. So keeping our students accountable is another thing that we want to be able to do. And so when we're thinking about how can we keep them accountable, is one way is check-ins and a tracker. So right here, what you can do is you can set goals with your students. So on this spreadsheet, there's a link right here. It says goals. And this is a SMART goal template. You're going to be able to walk through each part of the SMART goal template with your students. And it's just kind of broken up so that way they can create a goal and then they put it together up here. Once they have their goal, there's this action plan and their obstacles and maybe possible solutions that they could do to overcome those obstacles. So again, they develop their SMART goals. We conference and talk about their SMART goals. I will either copy this over, so every single student gets a copy in my learning management system, and I will add the link on here, or I will just copy and paste the text. That's kind of up to you of how you want this to be organized. So then I have every single student's goal right here. I can quickly see it. And then I can go over here and I can say, okay, I am checking in with student 14. Their goal has been met, or I can say this student has been in process. This allows me to track every single student to know, okay, where are they at in this process? Have I conference with them 4 times before the end of the quarter? So again, I'm able to kind of come in here, make sure that I'm meeting with each of my students individually before I'm just shipping them out. To just kind of do it. And then I can come down here and say, oh, I haven't met with any of these students and it's week 2. So I need to start here with pulling these kids. I've already met with all of these students up here. So again, this can just kind of help you keep track of who you still need to meet with, how they're doing on their goals. And then you could even maybe group students if they have similar goals as well. Crazy eights. So another activity is crazy eights. And when it comes to crazy eights, it's great for brainstorming. So students will have 30 seconds per the box. So here is a box. And again, 30 seconds for each box. And what happens is students can sketch, draw, whatever they want to do to get their ideas out there on the paper. They can write, they can, again, draw or whatever they need to do to get their ideas out on the paper. So they will have 30 seconds to draw, write, whatever they want to do in this box. And then they take a 10-second break. So this is like the break. And then they start over again with 30 seconds. So students continue this process throughout the Crazy 8 activity until they're all done. And so a couple things that I like to use Crazy Eights for is just to get students brainstorming and thinking about their learning. And I'm able to kind of go in and tell students, okay, I want you to do a brain dump of maybe what we're learning, and they can do 8 different ideas there. Maybe there's a recess issue. Come up with 8 solutions for this resource issue. And so students will reflect and think about that issue at recess, and they will have to come up with 8 different ideas in order to solve that problem. And there is a timer up here that will go off every 30 seconds and then a 10-second break. So then I just tell the students, all right, next box, next box, next box, and then we come up with the best idea based on our Crazy 8 solutions. Capture the Flag is another game that you're able to play with your students. So when it comes to capture the flag, students are in groups. So again, I like to keep groups around 3 students, and they are going to answer questions. So again, task cards or worksheets, wherever you can get questions works just fine. The teacher is going to check in with students. So students are working self-paced on these questions, and the teacher is walking around. I typically have a marker that they're working on, like a paper or math worksheet where they're practicing equations, and I will just give them a star. So I take my marker and I give them a star. If they get a star, they get to steal a flag. If they don't get a star, they have to retry it. And so here are the different flags. And every single group usually has 4 to 6 to start with. And once I have all of those flags ready and they get the answer correct, they can go steal a flag. At the end of the game, they figure out what each color is worth. So for this example, and I change this as well, green flags are worth 5 points, pink flags are worth 3, this orange color is 6, and the yellow is 10. And so once students have all their flags at the end of the game, they tally up their points, and then we have a winner. You can also change the points to fractions or decimals if you're a math teacher and you're working on those concepts. You can go in and update any of the information that you want to for your students to do. And again, after we play, I just come in here and quickly change some of these points because they do memorize them. And then the team with the most points is our winner. Another way is to give feedback to students. And one of the ways that we can do this is it's called grow and glow. So when we're looking at glow and grow, what happens is students are able to think about what did they really like about their partner or a classmate's activity that they did. So they're going to think about what they really liked. And then a grow is something that they weren't sure about. They're trying to think like, what was maybe the intent or what were you hoping to achieve? And what I did with this student, this was for a video project, is they had to actually use timestamps from the video. So they had to kind of work on pulling evidence And it worked out really well. Students watched the video and then they would watch the video and pause it. And then they would say, at this timestamp, you need to capitalize Ben Michelson's first and last name. So it gave them an opportunity to provide feedback in a meaningful way for other students. And then what they did is they had these little papers and I just cut them. And it was kind of like a post-it note. And then the students wrote a glow and a grow for each of the different uh, videos that they watch. Grade checks. Grade checks should be done throughout the quarter. So we kind of talked about goal setting and how you should keep checking in with students and how that tracker can help you do so. So right here we have our grade sheet, and what we can do is our students are using a Google form. So if you go into tools and then you go into manage form and edit form, this is what the students are filling out. So they're going to complete this activity. And when they complete that grade check, it's coming onto this spreadsheet. And on this spreadsheet, I'm able to see the quarter. I can see what week we're in, and I can see their letter grade, and I can also see how many assignments they have per class. So what I've done is I've tallied it up here, and it's telling me that this student has 7, this student has 11. And so I can quickly look over that data, and with my team of teachers that I'm teaching with, I can sit down with them and say, okay, is this student good, okay, or not good? And you want to keep it no talking at all, just hand symbols at this meeting, because you probably have over 75 kids. And so you want to be very quick with this activity, like, yes, they're good, or not at all. And then over here is where you can add that final voting symbol that your team decided to vote for. And then if the student is yellow or red, they need an advocate. Which teacher is going to check in with these students to help them get caught up on any of those missing assignments? It's also really important to note that this happens at weeks 3, 5, and 7. Okay, so 3, 5, and 7 in a 9 weeks, because if we wait, which I've seen a lot of teachers, me included, when we wait until week number 7 to check everything, this 11 could be like 38 or 40, if not more, right? And so when we're looking at this data, if we can get a student by week 3 to turn in some of their assignments that are missing, then we're more likely to have that student be set up for more success. So I think that's really important to note and kind of reflect and think about, like, am I meeting students at weeks 3 and 5? Am I waiting until week 7? And so again, you have all of this information right here, and you're able to check in with your students and then ask them how you can support them. It also allows other teachers to see how much missing assignments they have, not just in your class, but in other classes as well. And then there's feedback. So when we are giving feedback, another protocol is using the tag feedback. So for this activity, it goes along with another video project that we did. And students learned first how to give good feedback. Once we talked about how to give good feedback, they watched a video for 1 minute. They gave feedback for 2 minutes, and then they switched. So they rewatched another video. It was kind of a gallery walk. And then they would give feedback. And again, there was timers set for all of these different activities. When they were thinking about the feedback, they used the tag framework. So they used tell something they liked, they asked a question, and then they gave a suggestion. They had to provide their first and last initial, and they had to rate the video. So these papers were printed out and taped on the desk. And so the student had their computer up and then this paper right next to it. So all students needed were their headphones, a pencil, and have their computer ready. Once all of that was ready, students went around and they then gave feedback for, again, 2 minutes. And then we rotated and rotated, kind of like the gallery walk idea. However, we had to kind of go over some helpful hints on how to give feedback because it wasn't natural for our students. And so for them to give feedback, we created these sentence stems for them to really help them be able to give feedback to others in the class. And then I took the rubric, and these were all of kind of the success criteria that were expected. And I explained, what does it look like if we tell, ask, and give a suggestion? So for example, the title and the author. I really liked how you used the title and the author of the book in your video. Okay, that's how you might tell it. Where it says, ask a question. Why did you pick that font for the title and the author of your book? The give a suggestion. Capitalize the Ben Michelson's first and last initial at the 37-second mark. So again, that's where we talked about those timestamps are huge whenever you can pull that, because it makes the student feel seen and heard. And so again, the students went through the tag feedback protocol, and they were able to give very strong feedback to their classmates based on the success criteria that we already had laid out. And again, they were able to kind of see an example of what this looked like before they just gave it away. This one is chance. And when we're looking at chance, you can use this in multiple different ways. It's a game again. And when we're thinking about chance, you can have students answer questions correctly, or you can have behavior goals. So maybe you have a class that is acting up, and you could create 2 behavior goals. The students will sit in their seats, and the students will raise their hand. If students are showing that and doing that, they get to come up and pick any box to put their name in. So students will come up if they get a question right, or if they're showing that behavior expectations are being met, they come up and put their name in the box. What will happen then at the end of the time or the timer, what the teacher will do is she will either call another teacher, or she already wrote down the answer, is grab that piece of paper and see who is the winner. So when we're looking at this, they're going to decide who is our winner for the chance, and that student might win some type of reward. Another thing when it comes to chance that you could add as an add-on is have students draw a star. So if they draw a star in one of these boxes, what that means is every single student maybe gets extra recess. So students really do enjoy when the star gets picked, because again, everyone in that class wins. And it's not just individual. But again, if it's just an individual initial that wins, then just that student. But if there's a star in that box, then everybody could get some type of reward. Another thing that has helped us is having a bus schedule. So there's 2 different kind of looks to this. But basically the gist of this is these students should still be in their classroom. Once the bus arrives to school, the teacher or the secretary moves these buses along to this side. So then in the classroom, the teacher is able to still have their students focused or working on something. And when they see it being moved in real time, because again, that everybody's in this Google slide, then they are able to know, oh, bus number 7 is here. Those students are dismissed. So again, we have it over the loudspeaker, but having this visual has cut down on the amount of students who are missing their buses. So this was huge for us when we started to implement this in our district. This is just another view of what it might look like. This is a spreadsheet. And so then the teacher just comes in here, types in a time. And when they type in a time, then that's the students know, okay, my bus is here and they can go. Vocabulary sketches. So this kind of idea is based off of Sketch and Tell, which is an edu protocol. If you haven't read those books, you need to. And what happens with this activity is students will have a vocab word. The vocab word will go in this box. After they have that vocab word, they're going to come up with a definition. So students are going to write a definition in their own words, or you can have them copy it, but I like to use their own words. And then they're going to sketch. They're going to sketch an image about what that word reminds them of in an image. Students will then do the next word and so on until they complete all of their different vocabulary words together. And what is great about this, again, students are starting to learn new vocabulary words that they're going to need to know in their subject area. And then reflections. So there's a couple different things that we might do when it comes to reflection and how to get our students really thinking about the content and what they need to do. And so the first thing right here, this is a reflection for students. This top part is the beginning of class. This bottom part is at the end. So what students will do is they're going to pick out their emoji. They're going to let me know if they want a check-in with me or not. And then they're going to just let me know real quick, am I on pace, behind pace, or ahead of pace? And what that means is there's all of these different roadmaps here. And on these roadmaps, students will learn content by completing all of these different activities, self-pace. So you can see here, this one's a car and they can move along to complete all of these different activities. And so once students are finished completing these activities, this is where that reflection comes into play. They would maybe say, I'm behind pace, or hey, today I'm on pace. So students are able to use this information to know where they're at and what their next steps are, and if they're on pace or not be on pace. One thing that has helped with knowing if a student is on pace or not on pace, I use a today's goal. We'll see if it pops up. And so you can see here on this example, there's a number 7. So for example, these students need to get to number 7 today. If they don't, then they are behind pace. If they are, then they're on pace. And if they're ahead of number 7, maybe they're at number 9, they are ahead of pace. So students are able to quickly kind of see where they are. And then they're going to create a goal for the class period. My goal is to get to number 7 today. My goal is to get to number 8 today. My goal is to get feedback on this. Okay, so students are creating their own goals. And then at the end of class, they get their paper back. And I conference with students if they hit yes. So that way I'm able to have that one-on-one check-in with them. And then when they finish the class, they tell me what they accomplished. So they're going to make sure their personal checklist is up to date. That just means that their little tracker piece is where it needs to be. And then I can ask them if they want a personal check-in next class. So these students that say yes, I'm able to pull with them while the other students are completing this activity as their bell work. And then another thing is they're going to let me know where they met their goal. Did they not? Did they exceed? And then what is their plan for the next class? So having these goal settings, having these reflections can help with creating that student ownership for us in our classroom. Which one doesn't belong? So here is an activity where students will have 4 images. So you can see here's 4 images. And then they will write bullet points of which one doesn't belong and why. So they're providing that justification again to help bring that to a higher DOK level. So right here we've got a basketball, a brownie, and a cake. So they're going through and thinking about all of the reasons why this does not belong. Once students list it all out, they then are going to make a choice. So I love, again, having the students list out all of their choices first so that way they can think which one doesn't belong. And then based on that is what they're going to kind of make a decision for. And then they will support their answer down here. Blank doesn't belong because, and they have to explain what doesn't belong and why. Sound prediction. So you can find a video clip from YouTube and insert it into this slide. But basically, at whatever you're teaching, what is the sound effect that might help with that unit? Help make students remember that unit. So I'll play the sound clip. Students will listen first. And then they make a prediction. What do they think this is going to be about? What do they think this unit, this book, this activity we're about to do is going to be about? So it's a fun way to grab your students' attention and really have them focus in on what they could be, right? Because it could be almost anything when it comes to sound predictions and what they can kind of come up with when they're thinking about their content as well, making those connections. The next one is Instagram. So here is a template where students could take a character, a favorite person in history, some type of concept, and they add that image right here. They then are able to find 3 different highlight posts to kind of post and write a summary about. And then they can find anybody that wants to follow them and let us know how many followers they have, and providing that justification as why. Again, your students are going to be able to make a lot more connections when they're able to sync up with that why. And then the last one, number 20, is the 5 E's. So when we're looking at the 5 E's, there's a couple things to remember about. We have engage, explain, explore, elaborate, and evaluate are the 5 E's. And so when we're in here, you can see here we've got the today's goal. That just kind of helps us focus in with some of our executive functioning skills. We can see that they're on pace. So number 3 is the goal for this lesson. Then you can see that by the end of class, they're going to have a small group discussion. So everybody's working independently here, but then they're going to come back together for the last 15 minutes to have that in-person discussion. Students here are going to be conferencing with the teacher. So the teacher would be able to put different names and conference with those students throughout as they're working self-paced. And then this is just a reminder for students to turn their work into the red bin. So students will complete these in order. This first one is popcorn predictions. It's similar to mystery predictions. Students have those quotes and then they pop around the room. So rather than just sitting at their table, they're now popping around the room to make predictions about maybe a book that they're about to read, maybe a vocab word, maybe something about science or social studies. So again, students are going to get these little slips of quotes, and then they make predictions based on how those quotes went about. Another one is, because of the Westing games, the topic of this 5 E's, there are a lot of characters. So there's a ton of characters in the Westing games. And because of that, what happened is we decided to do a gallery walk. So here are some of the examples of the character list in the Westing games. Then what students had to do is they had to go back to that sketch and tell that we talked about earlier. They wrote the character, told something about her, and then what they did is they had to sketch that person. So there were some example sketches here, but then they had to sketch that person just because some of the characters have some interesting features about them. After that, students then did a real talk video. So what happens is there was a video of the chapters. So I just took the chapters and I read them and I put it into WeVideo, and I was able to add in different visuals or different sound effects that occurred during the book. And so the students were more engaged by this activity because, again, they could virtually see what was taking place. And then what the students did is they did a real talk discussion, which is this activity right here, where students have sentence sims to help them give feedback. But before that, they have all of these different maps of questions. So questions, quotes, observations, connections, style, and vocabulary. So as they were reading those 3 chapters, the students had to take a Post-it note and they had to write down a quote. And what you can see here, there are some sentence stems down below. How, what if, why? So maybe they want to ask a question. Vocabulary, they could kind of think, okay, well, why are we focused on this word, or what's the reasoning behind that? We're also maybe making connections. X reminds me of ... And so students had their Post-it notes and they had to have those ready again by the end of the class. So again, we had a goal. Their goal was box 3. They had to finish box 3 by the end of the class to complete in the real talk discussion. After students went about and grabbed their Post-it notes with these activities, they then came back and decided which of the Post-it notes they were going to discuss in which order. So they put them in order. We started a timer, and students had 15 minutes to have a conversation with their group. So that because box 3 was the next day, some students were able to get ahead, but the next activity was a choice board. So the elaborate choice board is down here. Students could create a 1-pager where they have 1 page, and this one has some different layouts. And they take that 1 page and then they decorate it. They can add quotes, they can add images, they can add whatever they want to kind of summarize those 3 chapters and elaborate more on the content. We talked about that Instagram already, but here it is again, where students had to pick 1 character from those 3 chapters and create an Instagram profile picture and description and some posts for that character. Because of the building of the Westing Games, students could physically make a map of where everybody lives and where everything is located, just to help us know what the expectation was. And then finally, there was a mastery check. So when it comes to this mastery check, students had to pick one of these questions, and then I had my success criteria down here, and I could tell them, yes, you mastered it, or no, you have not. And it was just a great way to test students' knowledge on these 3 chapters to see, have they read it? Do they understand it? Are they able to comprehend that information? All right, so please, if there's any questions, don't hesitate to reach out, but also throw them in the chat. So if you do have a question, feel free to throw it into the YouTube chat. I'm more than happy to answer it right now. But if there are no questions, feel free to reach out. This is recorded. I'm going to throw the link in the chat. It's the same link that you're at right now, but it's going into the YouTube chat. So if you're like, I am ready to try one strategy, you can try that one strategy and then come back for more. So think about how you kind of maybe want to organize your life this upcoming school year and what strategy you want to try first. And feel free to use the chat. Let me know, what are you excited to try? So again, if you have questions, reach out. You can either message me on Twitter or you can email me. And then there's also a podcast. So this podcast comes out every single Wednesday, and it's about behavior and ed tech. So if you're interested in learning more or listening more, you will be able to go to Control the Chaos and listen in on Wednesdays when our episodes drop. There's also that Gold EDU group. So you're able to go to this Google group, join the community, and that's how you access all the material in the presentation. And then there's also my book, Control the Chaos. And this is all about executive functioning skills to help you be successful in your classroom. Okay, I'm going to throw in the link to the slides. It's at this bit.ly. So if you go to this bit.ly, you should be able to access the slide deck. Sometimes bit.lys are blocked by district. So if that's the case, I'm also going to throw in the chat the longer URL. And thank you everyone in the chat that has just said that this is really useful and you love all the different ideas. I'm really glad you have found this session helpful. And again, it is recorded, so you can come back as many times as you need to, pause, rewind, skip forward to whatever strategy you're like, I want to know more about this. And I enjoyed my time with you guys today. So again, thank you so much for joining me. And if there are no questions, I'm going to go ahead and log off. But if you do have a question, reach out. You have my email and you have my social media handle.